My name is Stephanie. You can call me Steph, and I will be your host and moderator for today's panel. Now, before we officially begin the discussion today, I'd like to take a moment to share some announcements with you all, as well as read out the results from our poll. So our YouTube channel has a recording of all of our past event insider sessions, along with other content about Whova. So if you're interested in watching more panels, definitely subscribe to the Whova channel to receive notifications on our latest videos and watch our older ones too. Now, in the days leading up to this session, we opened up 5 poll questions for everyone to answer. So these polls are still open for everyone to submit their responses. But first, I'd like to take a moment to share the responses we have so far, since these are some of the topics we will be covering with our guest speakers. The first poll question we asked our participants was, what do you want to get the most from this session? So some of the answers I see are some ideas on how to get sponsors and exhibitors for our fundraiser and conference, smart ways to offset the cost of the Whova app by engaging sponsors and exhibitors, lots about engaging and attracting exhibitors and sponsors, and also retention as well. So thank you all so much for your responses. And our next question is, how much does sponsor and exhibitor revenue contribute to your overall event budget? So it looks like 25 to 50% just pulled into the lead, with less than 25% just following, and then a tie between 50 to 75 and more than 75%. Thank you all so much for answering that one. Now, our third question is, which of the following is your biggest challenge when working with sponsors and exhibitors? And this is another multiple choice question. And our poll results are, by far the leading challenge that everyone is experiencing is attracting new sponsors and exhibitors. So we will definitely make sure to spend some extra time covering this today. And then right after that, we have creating compelling packages, then a tie between delivering promised ROI and managing them on site and during the event. Okay, now our fourth question is, have you used Whova's sponsor and exhibitor features? So we've listed some examples in there, like our popular sponsor banners, the sponsor and exhibitor registration, and our passport contest. We have a few that said it's not applicable to their events, but hopefully we can get our panelists' insight on how they use some of the Whova features during our panel today. All right. And then our last question that we asked is, how do you currently structure your exhibitor and sponsor offerings? So the leading response here is tiered packages like gold, silver, and bronze. Great. And then next is just a la carte options. And then third, we have a mix of tiered and add-on options. All right. Perfect. Thank you all so much for everyone who took the time to share their thoughts and experience in today's polls. It's really great to see all these responses, and we will be covering some of these topics with our guest speakers. Now, my final housekeeping announcement before today's panel discussion is that we will reserve at least the last 10 minutes of the session for live audience questions. So if at any moment you have a question you would like to ask our guest panelists, please make sure to drop them in the Whova Q&A tab. Once we end our discussion, I will begin the live Q&A segment and start with questions that received the most votes. So aside from submitting your own questions, please also vote for other questions you find interesting, since I will start with those highly voted questions first. All right, so now it's the moment that we've all been waiting for. It's officially time to start our discussion and introduce our panelists for today. So first to our virtual stage is Shahara Anderson Davis, who is the founder of 3D Vision, a branding and communications consulting firm. Shahara, it's so great to have you here today. Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Hi, everyone that's on the call. My name is Shahara. I have a brand agency and communications consultancy, and we support association and small businesses with strategic communications.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Shahara. Now, our second speaker today is Pam Goodall. She's the Marketing Senior Director at ITE, a community of transportation professionals. Pam, we're so happy to have you here. Could you also take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I'm Pam Goodell, and I'm the Marketing Senior Director at ITE. And I've been here for about 12 years. And in that role, I've overseen marketing as well as the exhibitor and sponsor environment. I've been with associations for nearly 30 years.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your introduction, Pam. And then last but not least, we have Tom Clayton, who is the Director of Training and Member Services at the Colorado Asphalt Pavement Association. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Good morning. My name is Tom. I'm, as Stephanie said, Director of Training for the Asphalt Pavement Association here in Colorado. I am also the chairman of our asphalt conference, which is held annually in February. We have about a 1,500 person conference that we have every year. So we use Whova and we rely on Whova a lot. So we'll hope we can talk about some of the challenges that we have for our conference.
Thank you so much for your introduction, Tom. And thank you for all three of our speakers. We're so happy to have you all here. I'm looking forward to hearing your insights on attracting exhibitors and sponsors. But first, I'd love to start by hearing more about your events before diving into today's topic. So to start, could you share a bit about the events you have run recently, such as how many days they lasted, how many people attended, and the number of sponsors and exhibitors who come to each event? So Pam, I'll turn to you first for this question.
Sure. So we use Whova for our annual meeting. Our most recent annual meeting was in Orlando this past August, and we had more than 1,400 attendees, 29 sponsors, and 83 exhibitors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. And then, Tom, could you also please share a bit about your events? I know you briefly talked a bit about it, but if you could share a little bit more, such as how many sponsors and exhibitors you typically have.
Sure. We, like I said, we have about a 1,500 person event. We have about 80 vendors, and we had about 30 sponsors for our event. And that was past February.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for sharing. And then, Shahara, same question to you. Could you please share a bit about your events and how many sponsors and exhibitors you typically have?
Yes, absolutely. Most recently, I led the Whova app development and management for the 40th annual AMAC Airport Business Conference. And we had about over 70 exhibitors and over 70 sponsors. That event grows annually. And it was about close to 1,600 attendees this year.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Shahara. And thank you to our panelists. It's so great to have an idea of the types of events that each of you run. Now, to get into today's topic, I would like to start out with the role that sponsors and exhibitors play in your event's success. So the first question I'd like to ask is, what percentage of your overall event budget typically comes from sponsorships and exhibitors? And how critical are they to your event's success? So Tom, we'll start with you for this one.
Sure. Our budget is probably 60% is our sponsors and our exhibitors, for maybe even a little more than that. 40% back to our attendees. And so we're really keen on finding good exhibitors. That's not our big problem. Our problem is not necessarily exhibitors. Our big problem is sponsors. Trying to squeeze the money out of sponsors is our biggest problem.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And then Pam, what about you? How much do sponsors and exhibitors contribute to your event budget, and how critical are they to your event success?
Sure. So our exhibitors and sponsors contribute about 35 to 40% to the budget. That number is growing year over year, which is great. They do provide a critical component to our budget. They help defray expenses for the conference as well as add to the bottom line. Also, from a timing perspective, because our exhibitors will pay when they sign their contracts, when our accounting team is looking to prepay some of our bills, we already have some money in the budget, so to speak, or it helps with the cash flow overall.
Gotcha. Great to hear. Thank you so much. And then now I want to kind of discuss the strategy that goes behind building your sponsor and exhibitor tiers and prospectus. I know that this is something that our audience really wants to hear. So we know it's crucial to tailor your offerings to appeal to sponsors and exhibitors, but the specifics of how to do so may not be so clear. So my next question is, how do you structure your sponsorship or exhibitor tiers? And what factors do you consider when deciding what to offer at each level? So Pam, I'll turn back to you first for this question.
Okay, so in terms of exhibitors, we don't have specific tiers. They're based on the size of the booth, 10 by 10, 10 by 20, 20 by 20. It's fairly straightforward. However, with our sponsors, we have found, at least with this organization, and I will say that it is specific to each organization, how sponsor packages will work. We have a combination of tiers, which means, bronze, platinum, silver, gold, and that will have a certain price range and a certain level of benefit. So if somebody just wants to contribute X amount of dollars, but doesn't want to have to worry too much about fulfilling other aspects of an a la carte item, we have those items available, but we also offer a la carte items such as badge holders, sponsoring of the mobile app. I did see that, and also sponsoring Whova, the mobile app and everything that goes with it. I did see that as a question. So that's how we defray some of the costs related to utilizing Whova. We also have the internet as a sponsored item. So we do have a la carte items that companies can choose from a sponsorship perspective.
Gotcha. So the combination of tiers and a la carte sponsorships has worked well for you. Great
Yes.
to hear. Perfect. And then Tom, what about you? What's your approach to structuring your sponsorship or exhibitor tiers? And how do you decide what to offer at each level?
Yeah, we have many different tiers that we do, and we do that for our strategy is that we can offer things from very low cost up to high cost. Our major sponsors, we try to get $10,000 from to offset our costs. So we have everything down as Pam talked about, our badge holders for $500 and things down at that level. We're trying a new strategy this year. We're having a pre-event, and we're trying to get sponsors for that at low level to just help us offset cost. So we have our big vendors here. Our conference encompasses equipment manufacturers, so heavy equipment manufacturers, and they're paying the highest rate. And then down to our tables, we just offer we offer 6-foot table with 2 chairs, and that's our low end of our exhibitors, and then the other things that go along with it. So we're really conscious about trying to squeeze as much funding out of people, even if it's at low dollars. If we get 10 at $250, that's as good as 1 at 25. So we're doing what we can do to get our income, because we're totally based on our sponsorship money to help us offset those costs.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tom. So it sounds like you're kind of going through like everything that you have in your event, trying to leverage each piece for your.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're giving people every option. Pam talked about the internet, the this, the that. I mean, we've looked, our committee has looked at everything and said, well, we can get a sponsor for that. Let's get a sponsor for that. Let's try and get a sponsor for that. And so that we as a conference are not carrying the bill, we're letting our sponsors carry the bill.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Tom. And now to give our audience some ideas on what key offerings they can include in their prospectuses. We've already got so many amazing ones, but just to kind of focus in on what are kind of the most effective. I wanted to ask what elements of your exhibitor and sponsor packages or prospectus has been the most effective at attracting exhibitors and sponsors. So Shahara, I will direct this question to you first.
Yes, absolutely. Sponsors that want to engage in the AMAC Airport Business Conference typically value opportunities that maximize visibility, influence, and engagement. And so some of the most important offerings in the sponsorship packages tend to be high visibility branding and logo placement, whether that is in the app, on site with signage, and print materials, or on the conference website, as well as speaking or spotlight opportunities. So there are, for higher level sponsor tiers, speaking roles. And so just having that in person, on stage present and in front of nearly 1,600 attendees is highly valued and desired. And then spotlight opportunities, similar to what Pam and Tom said, water station sponsor or a Wi-Fi sponsor or app sponsor. Those items are super targeted and it's very clear, easy, and direct to see who those sponsors are and then get high visibility. Lanyard sponsor, attendee badge sponsor, and so on and so forth. And then another area of opportunity is through exhibit spaces or activation opportunities. So this conference also has an exhibit hall that is now called an experience hall. And so having the booth on site is helpful, but there's also activation opportunities where someone may do a pop-up during a session, like a featured or sponsored book signing. And so just trying to get creative with different levels of activity and, keep it fresh and modern. Another coveted benefit that interest sponsors is complimentary registrations and VIP access, whether it's to the chairman's reception or the president's reception, or since this conference is focused in the aviation and aero space industries, a meeting with the director of an airport or the airport's executives. One-on-one time is always coveted. And then lastly, I'll end with sponsorship benefits that include, customizing networking or matchmaking opportunities. So just for an example, airport primes being able to meet with concessionaire or AEC firms one-on-one, or sessions on how to do business with X airport. Just those structured and managed networking opportunities, because people want to interact in person, and not just in person, but leading up to the conference, they're interacting on the Whova app as soon as, it is launched. And so they're securing or following through on that connection or the deal on site.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Shahara. That was a lot of amazing insights. I especially love the activation and keeping also the expo hall fresh by calling it the experience hall. That's great. And then Pam, what about you? What parts of your packages or perspectives has been most effective at attracting exhibitors and sponsors?
So a lot of what we do, Shahara has mentioned. I think the recognition really is key. Sponsors are coming to your show and investing money in your show, and they want to be recognized for having done that. So, through branding opportunities on the marketing materials website, through the Whova app, the ability to build their brand profile through the app. I also do a lot of recognition through LinkedIn. Our sponsors and exhibitors have both mentioned how much they have appreciated when they come on board. I will say, hey, welcome to X and X company. They've come on board as a sponsor at X level, or, we're welcoming the new exhibitors. And it gives them exposure through LinkedIn. If I know the individual that's involved, I will tag somebody in the company. They very often will then reshare it, which then gives our show more branding itself. We offer our top level sponsors the ability to show videos, whether it's through at one of our plenary sessions, or we do have a special session called the Traffic Bowl, which is very popular among our student members. It's a Jeopardy style show. I really won't get into it right now, but it's a 2-hour program and we have breaks. So we have commercial videos, which our sponsors take advantage of. And then lastly, we have, much like Shahara mentioned, we have a VIP reception. We call it the President's Reception, where our sponsors are all invited. Our board members are there, as well as some of our top executives throughout the organization. So our sponsors feel that they are very valued through these opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. And that LinkedIn tip is really, really, it's really great to hear that insight. Thank you so much. All right, now beyond the opportunities and the perks themselves, there is definitely more that goes into attracting sponsors and exhibitors, and the prospectus is kind of one of the most important tools here. So I'd like to ask, how do you communicate the value story of your event in your prospectus? Do you mention target attendee data, past ROI metrics, any case studies or testimonials? So Tom, I'll turn to you first for this question.
What we do is that we provide our exhibitors and our speakers with the ability to get lists of those people that are at the conference. We use that through the Whova app, where we have QR codes on everybody's badges, and they can scan those badges. Then we can send them a list. They can pull it down themselves. There's a lot of value in that, where they're seeing the return. They've got a captive audience of, like I said, 1,500 people walking by. They don't have to go door to door to try and sell their wares or do what they're trying to do or get their name out there. And we also provide the same, what Pam and Sahara talked about. We have a marketing person that does LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook posts. We get new people signing up. We get the larger people coming in. We're showing them their value by posting those things up on those 3 platforms, those social media platforms. And then, as well as when our app goes live, there's a scrolling banner constantly scrolling with all of their sponsor info, and people can then hit on it, get that info. They don't have to go searching for it. It's already there for them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing, Tom. And then Shahara, what about your events? How do you communicate the value of your events clearly in your prospectus?
Yeah, absolutely. We tend to include a at a glance per se, or snapshot of kind of like those key elements that we want sponsors and exhibitors or advertisers to know. So some of those data points you mentioned, how many exhibitors, how many sponsors, how many attendees, what industries are represented, some of the attendee demographics, gender, or race, or what type of professional titles are present. We include testimonials. We also do a testimonial campaign on social media as well. Some of the platforms that are very highly engaged for AMAC is LinkedIn. And then I would tier probably Facebook and Instagram and then X. And again, it's so important to publicize the Whova app well in advance, as soon as you're able to, in advance, and communicate that to attendees. So we customize a flyer with very clear directions. And since AMAC has been using Whova now, I want to say since 2022, a lot of attendees are returning, so they're looking forward to it. They know how to utilize the app. The app is extremely intuitive. When you have it on your phone, or if you're on the desktop, you can see the past events, and you can see what's coming down the pipeline. And so those are just some of the ways we communicate the value. But it's to put a nice bow on it, it really is just highlighting those high level, at a glance, demographics and data points.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Shahara. Yes. So it sounds like the theme is like highlighting your attendees, those demographics, and then also making sure you promote your exhibitors and your sponsors on social media.
And I would like to add in, because we've been talking about leading up to and during, but post-event, in your recap, whether you're doing a recap email, a recap blog post, sharing debrief graphics. And this year we actually developed 2 different infographics that the AMAC National Office staff could use in prospecting, but also that could be shared with attendees who attended the event. During the business matchmaking, X amount of connections were made. Exhibitors had this many visits to their booth, et cetera. So just continuing to build a robust database of not just attendee demographics, but also what interactions and connections were made, whether it was on-site at the conference or through the Whova app.
Awesome. Thank you so much for adding that, Shahara.
Mhm.
All right. Now, another crucial part of growing your sponsor and exhibitor pool is finding new organizations to partner with. So I wanted to ask, what are some effective methods to expand your network and connect with new sponsors and exhibitors? So Pam, I'll start with you for this one.
Sure, thank you. So we actually have a 4-fold strategy for doing this. First of all, we are lucky in that our CEO and Chief Technical Officer have been in the transportation profession for their entire careers, more than 30 years. So they have a lot of contacts within the profession. And, the transportation profession, just like many other industries, goes through a lot of changes. And they are able to stay abreast of who has moved to a different position within a company, or what companies have merged, or who has acquired whom, and they can keep the prospective list fresh and up to date. So we're not reaching out to perhaps old contacts. That really helps facilitate our sponsorship and exhibitor sales quickly and easily. Also, ITE as an organization, we have 11 districts, 9 of which are in the United States. And for each annual meeting, we partner with one of those districts. So we are constantly moving around the United States, and each one of those districts will have their own annual meeting where they have their own sponsors, their own exhibitors that are regionally based. Some of them are nationally based, but some of them are regionally based. So we have access to their lists of exhibitors and sponsors for that conference, which provides us with new prospects. Some of those companies will stay on with us for the shows that we do around the United States. Some are just as part of that show in that area for that period of time. Also, our competition is fairly strong. And so I mentioned earlier that I do tag companies on LinkedIn, and their competition is checking out what they're doing on LinkedIn. So if I tag a specific sponsor or a sponsoring company or exhibiting company on LinkedIn, one of their competitors might see that, research our show, decide we need to be at that show, and so then they reach out. And then lastly, we simply ask our exhibitors and our attendees, who should be in this show? Who is missing from this show? And then we have a new list of people to reach out to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those 3 strategies. Thank you, Pam. And then, Tom, I'll turn this question to you. What are some effective methods you found to connect with new sponsors and exhibitors?
That last point that Pam just made, that is probably our first point. We are a membership organization as well. And so we talk to our members and say, who would you like to see? Or we have vendors that say, well, we got a sub vendor for us that, so we're relying on our exhibitors to give us, additional contacts. We're relying on our members, people that they're doing business with, saying, we're doing $1 million worth of business with this company. They should be at our conference. They should be part of what we're doing. So we're relying a lot on word of mouth to get everything out. We start advertising our conference. Our conference is in February, and we start advertising in April. We're trying to 10 months out, gather vendors and gather people. We open our registration up the 1st of July. So that we can, start filling in the blanks and getting our vendors in there, getting our exhibitors in there, getting our sponsors in there. So, a lot of what Pam said is what we're following too, but her last point was my first point.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tom. And then, aside from growing your sponsor and exhibitor pool, it's also crucial to retain those existing ones too. So I want to ask, when a sponsor or an exhibitor has joined for multiple years, what do you think keeps them coming back? Do you think it's ROI, your personal relationships, special recognition, or something else that you intentionally do? So Shahara, what do you think about this one?
Sure. Definitely ROI. Similar to Tom and Pam, AMAC is also a membership organization. And so for some of the high-level sponsor, the sponsorship is included in their membership. So that's a guaranteed way. It's through corporate partner agreements with some of those sponsors. There's a lot of returning sponsors. And so sponsors being aligned with the mission of the organization, and not just having the only touch point be the annual conference. There are other signature events that they participate in as an attendee or sponsor. And there's tons and tons of programming that goes on throughout the year, whether it's hosted by the AMAC National Office or AMAC's regional directors. It's broken out into 8 regions. In most recent years, events or programming hosted by AMAC chapters. So there's been a multi-pronged approach of not just interacting and engaging with sponsors when it comes to the annual AMAC Airport Business Conference, but also keeping up with them and showing them the value of AMAC's membership throughout the year as well.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing. And then Pam, same question to you. What do you think really keeps those longtime exhibitors and sponsors coming back to your event every year?
So I will say, I will add a plug for personal relationships. We have some exhibitors and sponsors who have been with us since longer than I've been with ITE, which is 12 years. They've been with us for 20 years or so. And as a result, a lot of personal relationships have been formed. And that's important because they know that they can reach out to us if they have ideas or considerations. One thing that I may touch on later is we had a longtime exhibitor approach us when we had a new executive team come in and talk about how they would like to see us have the opening reception come back. So the first night of our conference, We used to have an opening reception. For some reason that stopped. It happened before I started working here. And they said, you know, our exhibitors really enjoyed it. Can we bring it back? And so did our sponsors, because they were able to have some more recognition. But that being said, and Shahara mentioned this, if they are not seeing a return on investment, it doesn't matter how strong your personal relationship is, they're not coming back. They have a bottom line just like everyone else does. And being friends or being friendly with somebody only goes so far.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the relationships is kind of like the cherry on top of the ROI. Gotcha. All right. And I also wanted to build further on a point that Shahara brought up, which was engaging your sponsors or your sponsors between events outside of just like the main one. So I wanted to ask, how do you nurture your returning sponsors and exhibitors between events? So do you offer early renewal incentives, exclusive previews of next year's opportunities, or do you involve them in event planning discussions? So Pam, I'll turn back to you to start with this one.
Great. So I'll start with the sponsors first. We offer right of first refusal, which is really important to our sponsors because it means that if there is a coveted item, say badge holders or lanyards, it means that they can hold on to that year over year and they can count on that recognition and branding as part of their investment. And I will tell you that, you know, we've had conversations with a couple of sponsors who have thought about maybe giving up a lanyard sponsorship. And one thing that we've been able to tell them is if you give it up, the likelihood of you getting back is very small. From an exhibitor standpoint, that it's a little bit different. This year, or actually last year, we started creating a priority point system. As I had mentioned earlier, we've had exhibitors and sponsors that have been with us year over year. So this priority point system allows them to be moved to the front of the line. So it's not just a first come, first serve anymore. It is, if you've exhibited and sponsored with us for a long period of time, you're going to get first choice of exhibitor booth, for instance. We also sell our next year's show at our current year. And if we are going to be raising prices, we do so every 2 or 3 years. If you lock in exhibiting at the current year show, you'll get that current year pricing and will not be impacted by increased pricing. And then also, and I mentioned this in a previous answer, we listen to their feedback. And that will happen as the program is being developed. I mentioned the opening reception. For instance, we brought it back. But also, as we brought it back, we were holding a 90-minute opening reception. And we heard from our exhibitors, you know, that isn't really long enough. Can you extend it? So we extended it to 2 hours. And frankly, at this point, you know, the opening reception is the last event on the docket for our schedule. And we now just, you know, we'll pull the food, we pull the bars from the exhibit hall floor, but we just let people stay in there, you know, for as long as they want. I'm sure security comes in and kicks them out at some point, but, you know, we just let it go. So, and as people will know, once you pull the food and the bars, people start trickling out on their own. But if there's a really good conversation going, people are going to be able to continue that, or they'll all head out to dinner together.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Pam. And then Tom, same questions to you. And also, I know that one engagement strategy you have is involving your exhibitors in your event planning. So could you please speak on that?
Yeah, I'll hit that first. Our event planning, our committee that puts on our conference is made up of our larger vendors. So we have about 25 people on our planning committee, and we'll get about 10 to show up at a meeting. But you guys all know how that is. But we get them involved, and we when we're going to raise prices, we run that right up by them. They're the ones carrying the conference. So that's one of the things how we engage them. One of the things that we do is for our returning vendors, we send them information that says, hey, our conference, our registration, our exhibitor registration is going to open, because we open our registration in tiers. So the exhibitor and sponsors open first, and then our attendees opens about 2 months later. And we'll send all of our returning vendors and sponsors a message that says, look, it's going to open to the public on this date. We're going to give you 10 days ahead of that to get in, get your stuff, you get where you want to be. Different than Pam is, we don't let people reserve the same spot. That's one of the complaints that we had heard for years, because we had people sitting in the same spot every year, year after year after year, and they have a prime spot, or they had a really good traffic area, or whatever they were doing, and we had people complaining about that. Well, I want that spot. So what we did was we opened it up on a first come first serve basis. So when we tell our returning vendors, hey, it's going to open on this day at the 8 o'clock in the morning, when we say it's open, and I can get online and I can see 10 people in there trying to get spaces because they want those prime spots. We've priced the prime spots. The ones that we know are popular, they're more expensive. We've done that on purpose. If you want the prime spot, you're going to pay for it. You want the traffic, you're going to pay for it. So that's how we reach out to nurture our vendors. You say, well, it sounds like we're gouging. No, we're not. We're giving them the opportunity to move up, to get a better thing. They wanted to be the lanyard vendor. They wanted to be the lunch sponsor. They want to be that get in and get it. And we give them 10 days before we open it up to the general public. And it's amazing how much that difference that has made.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tom. All right, so another area I would like to touch on is how event tech in particular can be a big opportunity in increasing ROI for sponsors and exhibitors. So we kind of touched on this earlier, but I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper on this point. So next, I would like to ask, how have you leveraged event tech like the event app, your event websites, to increase visibility and ROI for your sponsors? So Shahara, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. So the event website is a huge draw, whether it is primary recognition on the homepage. We utilize Whova's plugin ability to have the sponsors display on the event website, as well as the exhibitors to display. We've been doing that about 2 years now, so that has been great visibility. In the Whova app, depending on your sponsorship level, you will have different benefits for where your logo will be placed. So, we all know that you get your sponsor profile, but by utilizing some of the advanced banners on the homepage or the agenda page, especially with how many impressions that those banners in those highly visible and accessible areas of the app receive, those are always coveted benefits. And outside of the website, there's a dedicated newsletter for the conference. And so depending on your sponsorship level, logo inclusion in that newsletter is highly coveted as well. And for social media, that is one of the main ways that AMAC members and conference attendees or registrants engage. And so having spotlight posts for sponsors is another way. And then closing and the recap video that is produced for the conference. There is always inclusion of, depending on your sponsorship level, inclusion in that recap video. And so, that goes out to all the attendees, and it lives permanently on AMAC's YouTube, and it is communicated via email and social media. So that gets a huge draw and reach.
Gotcha. Thank you, Shahara.
Mhm.
And then Pam, how about you? What role does event tech play in increasing visibility, oh my goodness, and ROI for your sponsors?
It plays a significant role, and I can repeat a lot of what Shahara said, but she said it so well, I'll just let that stand there. You know, we use the plugin, much like she talked about. One of the things that we also do, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, is that we have, with one of our sponsors, we have a in-kind agreement where they come with a video team and they will interview some of our sponsors, or they interview some of our exhibitors, which then those videos are put up on YouTube. So they help not only brand and provide recognition for the exhibitors and sponsors that are interviewed, but it highlights our show as well. So, you know, I think the Whova app provides a lot of really great opportunity for organizations running a conference to highlight their exhibitors and sponsors.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Pam. And then I would also like to ask the same question this time for our exhibitors. So how do you utilize event tech to help exhibitors get more traffic and leads? So Tom, what do you think about this one?
What we do is, as we really utilize the Whova app, we are sending out messages, hey, stop by booth number, whatever. Go over here, they're giving away a brand new car. That's not true. Nobody does that. But, you know, we send messages and we hit the app, and then we're constantly using that technology in the app to drive people to vendors. We also are doing something new this year. We're calling them product showcases, that we have a bunch of extra rooms in our venue that we're just going to let the vendors go in. Hey, today at 2:00, go see Ferris Machinery in the Cottonwood room, and they're going to da-da-da-da-da-da. So we're constantly bombarding people, and it sounds like a bad word, but we're bombarding people with information of go to this vendor, go to that vendor. Hey, this vendor over here, they're giving away full-size candy bars. Go to this vendor. They're doing, you know, just trying to drive people to our vendors. And in our conference is a day and a half. But like I mentioned earlier this year, we're doing a pre-event on the night before, the evening before, for a couple of hours, and we're going to bombard people there. And we've invited the vendors to be there if they want to be there. It's going to be in our exhibit space. The vendors don't have to be there. It's what we're trying to target is people that are coming into town that are just going to be in the hotel, and they're going, well, what do I do tonight? You know, we're trying to give them something to do the night before. So we're going to encourage the vendors to be there, but they don't have to be. But if they are there, we're going to highlight it. Hey, such and such is over at table whatever, or this vendor is actually sponsoring the beer keg tonight, or whatever we're ever doing. So that's how we're utilizing tech, and it's through Whova at the event. Before the event, we're still going to use Whova, but we're also using our 3 social media platforms.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tom. And then I know we're coming up on Q&A time, but I just had one more question to ask. And the question is, once you have all your sponsors and your exhibitors, how do you effectively manage all of your sponsors and your exhibitors without taking too much of your time away from other important tasks? So Pam, what do you think?
Sure. So one of the things that hasn't really been mentioned is we contract with a sales team, so an outside sales team. So they are actually doing a lot of the sales for us. We've also contracted with them to do a lot of the fulfillment. So that does take a good amount of the questions and the emails that people normally would get off my desk. However, I still get quite a few. And one of the actions that I have started to take, and it's been very successful with at least the ITE exhibitors and sponsors, is that about 4 to 5 weeks before the deadline to order furniture through our decorator, because we have pipe and drape and our exhibitors need to order furniture, is I host a call with all the exhibitors and the sponsors, and I ask not only the stakeholders from my side, such as the hotel, electrical person, the decorator, etc., to attend, but anybody from the exhibit or sponsor side that's involved with the meeting. And we go through a presentation. They are able to ask questions at that point. And what I have found is it kind of feeds on itself because people on that call, first of all, really enjoy it. They have the time to ask questions, but other people ask questions that they may not have thought of, and they would have to email me about, but now they have the answer. And I think that's probably eliminated 50 to 60% of the questions just through that one call. And then also, just frankly, in the time leading up to the event, I know that I'm going to get a certain number of emails, certain number of phone calls, and I just schedule an hour or two every couple of days into my schedule to make sure that I can respond to them.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. I think that call is a really great idea. And then, Shahara, how do you manage your sponsors and your exhibitors without taking too much of your time?
Yeah, so AMAC has a team that manages, the large number of sponsors and exhibitors. And so, and similar to what was just shared, not necessarily sales, but they also contract an event management team as well. So it's kind of utilizing three tiers. One is the sponsorship and partnerships team, one is the event management team, and then the administrative staff from the AMAC national office. And so these teams work in collaboration, and they pretty much ensure that each sponsor and exhibitor receives a personalized attention and timely support, because as what was highlighted, the inboxes are flooding with questions. Although you may be over communicating information, people are not reading. And so sharing the information and not just email format, maybe some of it is customizing infographics or videos or calls. What's been helpful the last couple of years is hosting webinars, specific, like, hey, you're a sponsor, come join this sponsor webinar. Well, we're doing Q&A. You're an exhibitor, come join this webinar. You're an attendee, come join this webinar. And so just, attendees may push back and say they feel overwhelmed with information, but judging by all of us working with different organizations and our inboxes are still flooded with questions, it's safe to assume that over communication is still needed and people are not reading. And so having a dedicated team definitely supports and lifts getting to those inquiries promptly.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Shahara. So this wraps up our panel discussion. Sorry that it went a couple minutes over, but we will now begin the live Q&A for today's session. So I'll be pulling these questions from our Q&A tab, and I'll be starting with our most voted questions first. So our first question is from France. France asks, how do you go about contacting the sponsors? Do you do by phone calls, emails, and what department in the company do you typically contact? So I'll kick this question to any of our panelists who would like to answer.
Yeah, ours is a lot of word of mouth from our current vendors that know they're dealing with other people, or our current members that are dealing with other vendors and trying to get them in. That's how we're doing a lot of it. We do social media as well.
Yeah, I can chime in that when we are looking for the right contact, it is usually somebody within the marketing or business development. If they have a sales department, they're usually selling to somebody else. It's not inside sales. So I usually look for marketing or business development. And in terms of channels, I think you need to reach out in a variety of different channels to reach people, because as we all know, we all get emails, we all get phone calls, and we just need to be able to move through the clutter a little bit.
Totally. Shahara, do you have anything to add, or should I move on to the next question?
I think Pam and Tom pretty much covered it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, our next question comes from Sue, who asks, as conference management, what do you provide for exhibitors to bring more foot traffic to their booths? We offer exhibitor bingo, trivia, and a giveaway game specific to our organization. Do you do anything unique to provide the most exposure as possible to the vendors? So again, anyone can jump in.
I'll go ahead, Pam.
Oh, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
One way is that we have a member and also one of the chairs of the communications committee develop a physical passport that new members or first-time attendees receive during their new member and first-time attendee orientation. That is a session at the conference. And so having that physical passport and bouncing around to complete the activities in the passport has been a way of increasing engagement for exhibitors. And then within the last 2 years, we've been drilling down and utilizing Whova's passport feature as well. And another way is prior to the event, both Pam and Tom mentioned, sharing those attendee lists so that exhibitors can begin prior to the conference, communicating with attendees directly and sharing, any type of updates, product offerings or promotions or what they can expect on site at the conference. So those are three ways we increase visibility for exhibitors. But one I just thought of, which is new of the last 2 years as well, on site, we started having an actual stage in the exhibit hall and just doing different programming on that stage so that when it's not those hours where you're having food in the exhibit hall, which pretty much, people are always going to come for food, there's some activation because, there's just so much programming going on at a conference. Every program doesn't fit everyone. So you really do need to have your schedule set up in a way that everyone can find something to do. And so that has been a great filler and has been a great way to keep the experience hall robust with human bodies throughout the days that it is open.
I just quickly want to add, one of the things that we've heard from our exhibitors is they do not want the passport game. They feel that it is a distraction from quality conversations because people will just come up and interrupt a conversation in order to get whatever they need for the passport game. So we actually do not use the passport game at all. We ask every year, and every year it's just our exhibitors say no. One of the things that we do offer our exhibitors is for most of our exhibitors will have customers in the area who may not be attending the show, but we give them passes for people to come in to visit with the exhibit at the exhibit hall during our show. So they get a number of complimentary passes based on the size of their booth. They can send those to customers, and then the customers can come in and visit with them.
Gotcha. Thank you, Pam.
And
Tom, anything to? Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
wanted to add on to Pam. AMAC offers something similar because the receptions are so highly attended and a great engagement point, and as well as an experience hall, they offer a guest pass for those sessions. They're paid ticket though, but yes, you can get one of those and just attend receptions in the experience hall if you don't want to, attend any of the conference programming. Over to you, Tom.
We have a related event that goes along with our conference. The association does an awards dinner, and it's held the first night of our conference. So there's a reception before, which includes all of the attendees to the conference, and then those that are just coming to the dinner. So we were able to allow, anybody that's coming to the dinner, there's no cost for them. They can actually walk around the conference. They're there for a short time, and it's really, while the conference has shut down for the day, so to speak, once the reception starts, we all know that the vendors are all standing by the bar, as well as the exhibitors and attendees, everybody's standing by the bar, but we get people that will walk around. And so we're giving that value to the vendors as well, the exhibitors, because they're getting to see people that otherwise they definitely wouldn't have seen. And the people that come to our awards dinner are people that are making financial decisions. So the people that are going to be able to, the people coming to the dinner will have a group of people that are part of the conference. And they'll grab this person and say, hey, we need to come over and talk to this guy because we need what they're selling. So they're getting that additional bonus. It doesn't take another visit to get that. So we're given the value there.
Gotcha. So like outside of the expo hall, there's that opportunity too.
It's inside. Our reception is held inside of the events or the exhibit hall. So that's where we have people wandering around. So there's a lot of conversation that goes on in there that hadn't happened during the day.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, I know that we're a few minutes past the hour, but since we got started on our audience Q&A a little late, I do want to squeeze in one last question. And I think this one is directed at Shahara. And Sandra was asking, what is the Hall of Experiences? I think this was in reference to your.
Yes, so it is the exhibit hall, but we've renamed it as of 2023 to Experience Hall, just to just put a fun twist instead of saying exhibit hall or exhibitor room. And the reason that we put the twist and changed the name to Experience Hall is because it is an experience. It's not just exhibit booths. There's food activation, there's programmatic content happening on the stage. There is, again, since AMAC is a member-based organization, there's an info booth where you can go to the air quotes AMAC member hub and get information about membership and other AMAC initiatives and programs that are happening outside of the conference. And so it was just a fun twist, a wording twist on Exhibit Hall.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Shahara. So we are a few minutes past the hour. So thank you all so much for responding to our audience questions. It is indeed time to wrap up today's Event Insider session. So Pam, Tom, and Shahara, thank you again for being amazing guest panelists. We really, really appreciate you joining and sharing all of your insights with us. I know I got some really great takeaways from your advice, and I'm sure our audience did too. And to our audience, thank you so much for being here with us and asking some great questions. Sorry we didn't get to them all, but it was a pleasure hosting this session, and I hope you all had a great time learning from our guest speakers. So thanks everyone for attending our session, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye everyone.